Hello, Dave here. Welcome to installing WordPress 3.5, and we're going to go ahead and do it on an inexpensive shared host. I'm using just host. I just at the end of my inexpensive $3.95 situation or deal with them. So we have cPanel, we have a live host. We're going to go through. I broke it down to 25 steps. Right now, if we go out and look, the domain name here is ymanusolutions.com, and there's no site out there. And this is where we're going to put WordPress. So out at davecoast.com, I have a post out here. We're going to follow these steps here, these 25 steps, to actually install WordPress. Starting step number 1 in the browser, we take a look at the Codex install page, and you'll see here, let me just pop that down a little bit. This is pointing to this page here, basically codex.wordpress.org. This is home base, the town center for the community. Get to know it. This is where everything is. And notice we got a cute little red download button over here to download the latest and greatest version. So anyway, step 1, here's the installing page. And take a glance through here. You'll always pick up something useful. And I basically just pulled the steps out of here and this book I'm working with to gather some additional information. So anyway, so there's step 1, take a look in the Codex. Step 2, download the latest and greatest zip. So if you come out here, come back up to the top of the page, and you could just go to wordpress.org if you want. Either way, click on the download. And here's the latest zip, and click on it, and it downloads it. I'm not going to spend any time. I am going to assume you're capable of downloading and moving files around on whatever system you're working on. So let me just get that out of the way. But anyway, that's how easy it is to download WordPress. So that's step number 2. Get yourself a copy on your local machine. I know all these hosts, they have one-click installs, but we're going to get it directly from the Codex source, so you have the latest and greatest. And you need a copy just for looking at, and that's why I'm saying on number 3 here, on your local file system, unzip and keep a copy just for the sake of references. So I created a folder called WordPress 5.5 Sandbox, and I guess that should be 3.5 Sandbox. Anyway, can always rename it in a moment. But either way, I have 2 folders in here. One is the zipped, and 2 is the actual WordPress. And in here, here's our actual system. Here's the WordPress folder. And we want to be comfortable with it. You want to be able to look at it. Anyway, here's a copy that we can do anything we want to. We can't hurt anything by looking at this copy. But get familiar. Here's the basic structure. See, here's the root level files. And then there's 3 subdirectories. And most of the action of what we do is in content, which is themes and plugins and those kind of items. Anyway, so there's our WordPress directory. We'll talk about it in a minute, but I also have in the editor 2 files, the index.php from here, from the root of the WordPress directory, and this sample config. And we're just going to take a look at them. No big deal, but it's good to know what's going on in those. Okay, so that's step number 3. We have our local copy that we can reference. Then I move it up using FTP. There's multiple possibilities. You can use upload from the file manager. To me, FileZilla is a wonderful tool. All I need to do is I have my servers defined here. And if it's the last one I connected with, I click connect here. It brings me up to my site, and I can copy over the zip from here to here. You see I already have it up there. But anyway, I'm going to assume you know how to get a file up there. Good thing about FileZilla is you could just take this. I could just copy it from here, any file from here. So let's go back to here. I could take this file here. Now, let me just move it down here. If I wanted to, I could just drag and drop from here to here. See that? That would copy it in. Anyway, we don't want to spend any more time on that. Like I said, I'm assuming you're comfortable moving your files around. So we've downloaded WordPress. And that's step 2. We've moved a copy of the zip up to our hosted site. So now it's time to go ahead and go into our hosted site and start playing around with it. And let's go ahead, log into cPanel. And I have my login screen here. I'm using Just Host. Again, it's one of those $3.95 a month inexpensive shared hosting plans that I use for testing demo purposes. Anyway, I'll go ahead and log in. And I'll say save, doesn't really matter. Now, here's your main cPanel screen, and here's our steps, and I'm saying step 5, we want to go to cPanel File Manager to unzip the extract. So cPanel Files, File Manager, and I'll go ahead and go to our home directory, click go. This brings up our home directory, and you'll notice here that I have that's what I unzipped it to. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I'm going to unzip it as part of this demo. I meant to delete that before. Anyway, let me click delete here. Let's delete that. All right, bye-bye. And here's my WordPress 3.5 zip. And that's what I FTP'd up. You could also come here, do the upload, and choose your file and get it up that way. But let's go back here. If I come back to my WordPress 3.5 zip, right, our step is, we're on this step number 5, right? Unzip and name it something useful, and I'm going to call it WordPress 3.5 for this example. So going back to File Manager, I highlight WordPress 3.5 zip. I go up here to Extract, click Extract, and let's give it a useful name, and I'm going to call it WordPress 3.5. Is that everything? WordPress 3.5, yep. WordPress 3.5, let's extract it. Does its thing. Takes a few moments anyway. It's all happy and done. And now let me reload this guy. And we see that we have a WordPress 3.5 directory out here off of our root directory. Let's go back to our steps. So that was step 5. Step 6, in cPanel File Manager again, copy the WordPress subfolder from WordPress 3.5 to the document root. And I say you can do a control drag on that. But let me come back here to File Manager. If I double click that guy, shows me here's that WordPress directory. Remember, this is the same as this WordPress directory. That's why it was worth looking at the structure and understanding it. So now I want to move this to my document root, which is my public.html. Well, I could control drag it, and it copies it that way. Or I could do up here, where's copy, and it basically tells me where do I want to copy it to, and I can change this to public underscore HTML slash, and I'm going to call it, well, I'm just going to call it WordPress for right now because we changed that in our next statement. So here, let me hit reload. If I come back to WordPress 3.5, WordPress still exists here. If I come over to my public HTML, now I have a WordPress directory. And here's those 3 directories and those files we saw previously. Going back to our steps, so we did a copy of WordPress, and now let's rename it to my WP.dir for this example. So back here in File Manager, I'm going to come back to my public HTML, highlight WordPress, click rename, and I'm going to call it my WP.dir. The idea here is to give it a name that's not WordPress, so it's not obvious to the world. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just not obvious. So I'm just calling it my WP directory for my WordPress directory. We have that out there. Okay, so far so good. That was step 7. We're just cranking along. Let's go to step 8 in File Manager. Let's move the index.php file from my WP directory to public-html. Now this is a key step to make it happen so that we can use this directory, but we're going to have our site come up without having to type in the my WP directory at the end for our visitors. So let me go back here, and we're going to go into my WP directory. And what we're going to do is take this index.php, and I'm going to say move file, and I'm going to move it from this directory to the root, to the document root, public.html. So now I move that file, and now I have index.php in the document root. So going back to the document root here, I have index.php. Let's take a look at it. And there's the file. Very nice. And here's why, and this is the one for my reference, index.php. It's the same that we saw before. It's just a little easier to see in something like Notepad++ than it is on the site. So anyway, so it's a very simple file, and we're going to be modifying this part down here. Let's go to this next step here. So now we've moved. Well, let's verify that it was moved and it no longer exists in our my WP directory. And I don't see an index.php in here anymore. So far, so good. So we completed the move index, step 8. Step 9, we're going to edit that file, and we're basically, see what we're changing, we're putting our directory in, and I'm just bringing this up again here. We're going to go ahead and put our directory name here so that WordPress can find it. And this is how we're creating that link to this other directory. So let's come back out here, go to our public.html, index.php, and I'll go ahead and use let's just edit it simply. It brings it up nice and pretty here. Then I'll put in the slash my WP.dir. Very simple. Edit. You could have edited it on the other side and uploaded it, but this seems simple enough for that. What what is that? You know, 3, 6, 7, 8 characters I had to type there. So not too bad, but that's our editing. I'll go ahead and save those changes and hit close. And we just completed that step 9. Now for step 10, we want to go to cPanel and our databases. So go back to cPanel, and right here's all these fun things we can play with in cPanel. One of the things is databases here, and I'm going to go to MySQL databases. And cPanel is pretty easy, and it says, oh, look at this. Create a new database. Well, what's my step here? It says create a MySQL database. Name it something useful to yourself, and I'm going to use this name right here, which is WP Demo DB. In fact, I'm going to Control C to copy that. And again, I'm just making up demo names here. And I can Control V that in there, but I'm calling it WP Demo DB. And let's create it. It added that database. I go back and I see here in my list of current databases, and it always puts this is my account information in front of it because this is shared. So that's just how all my databases have this appended to the beginning. And I created a database with WP Demo DB. There's no user in here yet, but at least I have the database created. So step 10, creating the database, is complete. Now step 11, let's create our user and password. I'm going to call it WP user and WP pass. And this is to allow WordPress to work with our database. So add a new user, and I'm going to call it WP user. Just double check my names here. Yep, WP user. And WP pass 1. So WP pass 1, WP pass 1, create user. So now we've created a database and we've created a user, WP user, that's this user down here. We've created this user and we've created this database, WP Demo DB. Now we have to add the user to the database so it shows up here. And let's just follow our instructions. So we created the user and password, and we're going to keep note of what we used. Now in cPanel MySQL database, we're going to add that user to the database. So add user to the database, drop down WP user, database, WP Demo DB, and click add. And we come out here, we add the user to the database, and then step 13 is grant all privileges for that user on that database. So I'm going to click all privileges and make changes. So WP user was added to the database, WP Demo DB. Click go back, and now we see within WP Demo DB, here's the user, and it's associated with this database. Notice it's still empty. We haven't put anything in there, but this is the database that WordPress is going to be using. So yay, we now have a user and a database. And that's it right now for our setup for the MySQL databases. So now we're done. So now we go back to File Manager and we make sure that there's a .htaccess file in the public HTML directory. So back to File Manager, public HTML, and you'll notice that there's an htaccess record out here. Now let's just take a look at it, because this is what I used last time. It just has a couple of WordPress begin and end items here right now. Not much, but that happens from the install. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete that. And we delete that file. Now it doesn't exist anymore. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. And it's going to be .htaccess. And let's create a new file. And it's back out there. And this is just to start clean. And we view it, and it's an empty file. So we're all happy and good to go. So coming back here, make sure there's an H. So now I know that there's a file. It's empty, but that's okay. So step 15 in the browser, to start the install, I need to go to wymanusolutions.com, WP My Directory, and let me go ahead and copy this out of here. Come back to my browser session here. And I'm going to put that in here. And notice, so there's our domain name. Here's that directory name. And in order to get in and do our install, we need to go to the WP admin directory. So if we go back to our WordPress for reference, notice that here's WP admin. And that's why I'm going to that directory off of here to actually start the install. So go ahead and enter this and hit go. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And look at that. There doesn't seem to be a WP config.php file. And that's the screen print right here. Right? And go ahead, we'll let WordPress create it. Very nice of them. And again, because we have these reference files here, we can look at this sample. And what it's basically going to do, it's going to put in all these. We could manually put these values in here, but WordPress is going to give us a screen to enter these values. But this is basically what it's doing. It's taking this sample file and it's saving it as the config file. And we'll see that after we're done. So anyway, let's go back here and come back here. And it says you can create it and manually do it, or let WordPress do it. No problem. WordPress, go for it. I'm going to click create. And it comes up with this welcome screen. And that's this screen here. And we go ahead and click let's go. Let's go ahead and get started here. So let's go. And notice that we have to know these values. And that's what we know from before. Our database name, our database username, our database password, our database host, and a table prefix if we want to change it, which we don't have to. See, and it says I could have used this config.sample, but I didn't. So I'm going to say let's go. And now I have to put my values in here, and this is why I said, right, remember those later. Well, it's later. It's time to use those values from up above. Whoops. Let's go over here. So our database name is wymanus_WP DemoDB. Our user is wymanus WP user, and our password is WPPASS1. Whoops, I hit enter. And that was fine. Sorry about that, but you can see it. I was going to tab down. That was all our values. But here's, I went ahead and left it at localhost. You should be able to get this info from your web host if localhost does not work. Chances are it is localhost, and chances are you want to just leave it as WP_. You're welcome to change that. That's more use if you're using multiple sites. Anyway, let's go ahead. If we go back to your cPanel, here are databases, right? Let me go back to cPanel and PHP My Admin. I'll log in. And if we look at our databases here, notice that the breadcrumbs, right? So here's our database in question. It hasn't created, there's nothing in this table yet, but if you look at the breadcrumbs, it's localhost. So that's how we know it is localhost. Chances are, or most that I haven't seen anything but localhost. So anyway, so localhost it is. We're over here. So all right, Sparky. So now it's able to talk to our database. Our database is all set to go. So that's the beauty of getting the Sparky message. And it says run the install. Coming back here, that's why I say be Sparky and run the install. See, there's the same screen. And we basically just hit enter or click on run the install. We get a welcome screen. And you'll see here, here's our welcome screen on step 20. And we need to give it an admin and a password for the admin. Let's give it a site title, and I'm going to call it Video Demo WordPress Site. I'm going to call it Demo Admin and Demo Pass. That's weak, and use my email address, dave@davecoast.com, and click install. So here it is. Took us a while to get there, but here's our actual install moment. And ta-da! WordPress is now installed. Not too tough, not too difficult, and that's why it shows us the success screen for 21, and we click login. So let's come back here, click login, and this has my values in there, but you know, it's the demo admin and demo pass. And say remember me, so it brings it up next time, and click login. And that's this step here, step 22, putting in the values and clicking login. Then step 23, we have our dashboard, and we want to view our dashboard. So here's our dashboard. This is where we do all of our work, putting in posts, themes, everything. But we're still not quite done yet. WordPress is installed, but we still have one more step to do with our subdirectory setting. So coming back here, step number 24, we need to verify and set our URLs. So we go to Settings General. So Settings General, and there is, you can go ahead and put in a new value here. It says just another WordPress site, and I could say here's the site we just installed for the video. And notice here that we have a WordPress address and a site address. Well, the WordPress address is where WordPress lives, and that is in this subdirectory. But our actual site address, we want to be just our domain name without the subdirectory. So that's why this step here removes that from the subdirectory. And it says here, right, the WordPress address should not need changing. And the site address, we remove the subdirectory from the end. And this is the hardest step of the whole thing. So let's go ahead and save those changes. And it says settings save, thank you. And now it says now we can go to our site and we are installed and ready to roll. So I'll come back out here. I'll click dashboard. I'll click our actual site. Ooh, there's our site. Let's go ahead and just type that in from scratch. And it brings up our site. Here's our site. So now, if I come back out here, right, go back to localhost and look at databases. And we look at our demo database. Well, look at that. There's our WordPress databases that have been installed in our new database. And our site is up and running. So that's the 25 steps. Questions or comments, let me know at the bottom of the video or send me a note, dave@davecoast.com. Here is the post out here. And let me scroll up to the top here. So it's davecoast.com. And here is the how to install WordPress 3.5 using cPanel on a live site. That's a shared host. And notice, right, here's the tagline, here's the site. And now enjoy WordPress 3.5. Thank you very much for watching.